title was All Stories, Words and Ideas Are Not Reality. So we have come up with so many eloquent ideas in our society about how things work. What's really amazing is in science is they can't, I forget there's two different scientific approaches, but they can't match up. I think it's like Einstein's perspective on no, I've forgotten. But basically, from the way that I understand it, I'm going completely blank now from this scientific explanation. Please don't rely on me for science. But basically, what makes sense in our world, so gravity and space and time, as we begin to expand out into the universe, it doesn't make sense. So it seems to make sense in our reality, in our universe, in our world, the human world. But then as we expand out into the universe, it doesn't make sense. So it doesn't fit. There's something like that. So anyway, we've got these two different scientific modes. One that fits with the universe and space and time, and then one that fits with the human world and the way that we see things. And then it doesn't quite match. And I think an example of that, oh my goodness, I'm really making this up. Please, you can write and comment in Skype and tell me, or you can tell me on the comments below. You can tell me the actual explanation. And it's something like a reflection of that is that if you got onto an aeroplane and you went around the world, you would lose seconds. So you go actually faster if you go around the world in an aeroplane. Oh man, this is really a disaster. Okay, forget that. But what I'm trying to say is our ideas, the way we think the world is, the way we think life is, isn't actually the way that life is. That life is so much more magical and mysterious than what we give it credit. That we have all our concepts of this is the way that is, this is what this is the psychology of the human, and there's so much more happening. So if you take psychology of the human, we only look at psychology into terms of what we want our society to be. So we want our society to be families that have children, so a woman and a man that have children, and this was the original model, this is originally what we thought was sanity, to have children and then to grow up in this society that's all about production. So in this current society, and our psychology bases its conclusions on that, on the way that it sees us in relation to how we're fitting in with our environment and how we're fitting in with our society. And if we don't, then it's because we're mad or because there's something wrong with us. Whereas there's so much more at play happening. For example, we are energetic beings, so we're communicating energetically as well as mentally and verbally. Beingness, presence, that there's peace in beingness and in presence, that the point of life isn't about production. Humans have forgotten that, and they've got into this mode where they're like, we've got to produce. Like, that's not the point of our life. I was going to say, I don't know what the point of our life is. Maybe creativity, or to not human creativity, but for life's point is creativity, like creating. But it's kind of like, can't find that. It's like you begin to pull it, it's like a string fallen loose from a sweater, and you begin to pull it and everything begins to unravel. And if psychologists or scientists began to incorporate things like energy bodies, and that everything has an energy, that maybe there is no free will. Scientists have begun to discover that, but they overlook it. That we don't actually know what goodness and badness is. We know what goodness and badness is in relation to our society's model and what we think is good. Our society thinks a good woman is someone that gets married and has kids and behaves in a particular way. I think that's beginning to change, but that's predominantly still what society sees a good woman, a successful woman to be. Yeah, like if you take in all the countries of the whole entire world, I'd say that's like the predominant belief. And a man is someone that produces for his family. And people that don't do that, they're a bit weird, or there's something wrong with them. In some societies, they even maybe get killed. And so the way we look at our world and the way we look at each other is through all these indoctrinations that we believe are true. You could say that our society and our world is a cult. Like it's a cult belief. It's not true. We've made up the words, we've made up all the rules, and we've made up the parameters of what good and bad is. 200 years ago, it was bad to be gay. I mean, it's still bad to be gay in our society, but I mean, it was like punishable by death, I think, in Western society, or imprisonment. Maybe just imprisonment. 200 years ago, we'd have thought it was impossible that we carry around a little box in our pocket and we could speak to anyone, anywhere in the world, and we can find out all types of information in it. And we believe disease is caused often by not being clean enough, by not having the right medicines. And I don't believe that. Like, we don't take into account like people's thought processes, the way they think, the way they look at the world, as to how that affects disease, how that affects their life, how that affects their surroundings. I mean, it could be as radical as that we are creating our world with our thoughts. I mean, scientists haven't ruled that out. In quantum physics, there is a part of it which talks about that a particle doesn't form a position, it's all possibilities, it's infinite possibilities until it's observed. That's really, really far out. That's like mind-boggling. So it's infinite possibilities until it's observed. So the observer then has an effect on it. And then you could say, well, what is the observer? Which is true, what is the observer? But basically, everything that you think you know about life, everything you think you know about goodness and badness and right and wrong and the way things should be or shouldn't be, is all in your mind and can create infinite delusions. There's nothing wrong with all of it. It's just that it sends you down a track of believing in this world, and there's nothing wrong with that as well. It's just that there is something beyond what you believe, and if you're always lost in beliefs, then you can't tap into, or you can't remember that place that's free, that's here. Like, who you are is free. You're free. Your essence is free. It's not bound to a word. It's not bound to your past or to your future. So let's go to non-duality more. So what is non-duality? Non-duality is that which is looking, that which is experiencing. And that which is experiencing isn't a thing. It's not somewhere behind here, behind your eyes. It's something that cannot be found. It's everywhere in everything. It's experiencing now. So you think that I'm maybe talking to a person in there, and you're a person and I'm speaking to you. But actually what I'm speaking to is that consciousness which cannot be grasped. That consciousness is actually nothing, not a thing. It's so beautiful. Not a thing. And so consciousness isn't looking from a position. It's not looking from the perspective of you. It feels like it is. So it feels like consciousness is maybe looking from that angle of the body, but it's actually looking from all things. So it's actually the consciousness is in my face. It's in the space. It's in the walls. It's in the computer. It's in the sounds. So now you think that I'm conscious of Lisa's voice, whereas actually there is only Lisa's voice. You could even break it down and say there is no consciousness. There is only what is. There is only life appearing. What happens when there is just a belief in stories and belief in you, then a seeking energy arises. There's seeking, 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 trying to get to something. Whereas there's nothing to get to. Like, who is going to get there? What is going to get there? Seeking's always believing that my salvation is in a story. My salvation is not feeling this energy. My salvation is in getting a bigger house. My salvation is in losing weight. My salvation is in having more money. My salvation is in kids. My salvation is in this person understanding me. My salvation is in understanding my psychology. Whereas really your salvation is here. Your stories won't ever bring you freedom. What brings you freedom is the collapsing out of the stories, the seeing that nothing that you tell yourself, nothing you think or feel is reality. There's nothing wrong with them. That's what it's appearing thoughts and feelings. But it's this recognition that what you are is this presence that's here, this radical aliveness that's right here. This is free. This is so exciting. This moment is everything, what's happening now. So the bum on seat, the legs on the cushions, the water in the bladder, the pressure on the chest, the warmth of the drink, the buzzing of the computer. This is what's happening. This is your freedom always. What is your freedom. And right here, right now, there is nobody. You, the illusory you, exists in a story, and a story goes in time. So now there isn't actually somebody, and now is all there ever is, so there is no bodies. And all these ideas you have, it's a story that you're inside a body, it's a story that that is your body, it's a story that you're looking out, it's a story that you hear, it's a story that you're finite, it's a story that you're separate. In experiencing, how do you know that you're separate? How do you know where you start and stop? Your essence, that radical sense of aliveness which has always been with you, is something that you cannot grasp and is not in a position. It's not like consciousness looked from here or here or here or here. It's looking from everywhere. You can't find it. You can't find your essence, but yet it's here, always here, and not separate from everything that's appearing. So there's nothing that appears outside of your consciousness. There's nothing that appears outside that beingness, that sense of I am. There's nothing that appears outside of that. And that sense of being has always been with you. This empty looking has always been with you when you were 1, 2, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. But what happens is it gets muddled up with the personal attention and the thinking and the doership and the choices. So the doer, the thoughts, the choices, all of that's a functioning of the body. That's something that happens. And then that gets muddled up with your essence. So you think that that person is conscious, that person is doing it, and that person exists separately. But when you come back to the moment, you'll see that nothing is outside of that looking. Like, I'm not outside of your looking. It's not like looking stops here and I begin over there. Everything is in that looking. And the same with the beingness. Like, everything is inside being. And the beingness is love. Everything is inside love. The looking, I would say, is emptiness. But then when you condense them both down, you'll see that, like, really who you are is nothing appearing as everything, or everything as nothing. Nothing and everything, not a thing and all things. And it's here. It's always here. It's vibrant, it's alive. But the person gets seemingly stuck, and the consciousness and the person get stuck together, and then it's like, I am conscious, I am alive, I am this body, I am my thoughts, I am my behaviors, I am my actions. And then this creates this seeking energy, because when you do that, you feel limited. So you feel finite. And as soon as you feel finite, there's an uncomfortableness, because you're infinite and you're all possibilities. That's the nature of everything. Like, so if you go back to quantum physics, when you look at a particle is all possibilities until it's looked at. So your essence is all possibilities. It's that sense of wonder. It's, remember as a child, that beaming sense of wonder that you had. And when you become finite, when you become a thing, it always feels uncomfortable. It feels like you've been restrained. It feels like you've been put into a box. And then that creates seeking, and then that creates suffering. The seeking most probably creates overthinking, and the thinking becomes directed on what will make you happy. And then the belief is, the time will make me happy. So getting a house in the future, getting family, getting money, getting this, getting that. And then your life becomes very narrow, and your life reflects back that mentality. So I'm not allowed to speak about this on YouTube, because YouTube hides my videos if I speak about the current situation that's happening in the world. So I'm just going to call it L, the L thing that's happening. The L. Dun, 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 the L. Maybe it's like that to you because it's backwards, I can't remember. Boop, 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 the L. So with the L, I'm not into the conspiracies or not into the conspiracies. I don't know what the L is. I mean, this is something that's really crazy that's happened over the last year. I hope everyone knows what I'm talking about when I say the L. And I'm sure most of you don't believe me that YouTube hides you if you mention the L thing, because you like to believe that you live in a society that's free. Well, it is free. There are lots of great things about society, but YouTube is censoring videos. And it has algorithms, so it's not like there's some person sitting there watching my video. It's algorithms that are scanning my video, and if certain keywords are mentioned, then it begins to block you and hide you, and repetitively mentioned. So, and that has an effect because the creators begin to learn that, so the subjects that the creators have to avoid. So you're not, like, it's not free. It'd be amazing if a platform was set up that could be free, but I don't know how that would happen, because I can see lots of problems with that as well, like lots of abuse and stuff. Like, I quite appreciate over the 10 years that I've been creating that people aren't as abusive when I first started, because now they can't get away with it like they used to be able to, and I quite appreciate that. It was quite horrific at the beginning, but okay, so the L thing that's happening in a society. So I'm not saying there's a conspiracy or not a conspiracy. I don't care about that. My perspective on it is that your vibration is creating your reality. So your vibration has an effect on your reality. So, you know, when I said about life is all possibilities till it's looked at. So when it's looked at through like the Lisa instrument or through the John instrument or the Andrew or the Khaleesi, then I feel like what happens is then life defines itself. So if you've got lots of fear or lots of negativity, then that's what will begin to appear in that reality. If you're in the waking up story, then the waking up story will begin to appear. And I think it's really magical and really crazy and way more complex than we could possibly imagine, because it's also all interactive as well. So it's like this big computer program playground where the realities are being created by the instruments that are being looked through. So it's not that so consciousness is looking through these instruments, and then each instrument is creating its own particular reality. I don't think that I'm quite right on this. This is my broad explanation. I think it's way more complicated than I could possibly explain. And I think that like the L word has, like, if you imagined it like a computer program, it's like infected the computer programs. It's like one, you could imagine it like a meme. A meme is something that was invented like 30 years ago in Oxford, where it's like, instead of it being a gene, you know how genes evolve, a meme is like how ideas evolve. So the idea of God is like a really successful meme. The idea of quantum physics is fairly successful. So memes are like these ideas that evolve. And this L word has like really evolved really well. And I think it has like a massive impact on this virtual reality that we're all experiencing. And I think the disease, the L thing, becomes worse as people fear it more. I'm not saying that it doesn't exist as a disease, but maybe if we didn't fear disease like we do as a society as a whole, maybe there would be a really different relationship to it and death. I think the consequences of the fear that's been produced from the L are going to be horrific on society, on this collective dream. And I think the best thing that you can do for society is to get into this subject and beam with that infinite possibilities. So moving your attention back to the infinite possibilities. And this changes the dream. It gives the like strongest political activism that you could do. Like our attitude towards death is really bad. So even like if this L thing is like going to wipe out a lot of our society, like for me, if it comes for me, if my body can't handle it, which I assume it will, like I just presume it will do, but even if it can't, then that's the divine will, and it's really okay to die. I know that sounds really awful. I could get my ass sued for saying that, I'm sure. Like, but it's like death isn't the devil. Like death is a very natural process of this life. I'm not saying that that's the desire of the instruments to stay alive, but I think that when we have this mentality that death is a really awful thing, it creates like great seeking and great fear. Like death isn't the enemy. That's what we're taught by society. I mean, death doesn't even really exist. It's a word that we've made up, and then we're all terrified of it. Like I remember watching this film, I'm sure I've said this many times before, and in this film they didn't have the word death, and the impact that had on society, they didn't know what death was. When people died, what we know as died, they went to the other side, and the other side was a good place, so they didn't have any sense of that. And I just thought that was so amazing to watch that, because we have made up the word death and we've put meaning to it. We've put it as an end point, and then everyone is terrified of not existing. I'm not saying that in the moment of death there could be fear in Lisa, like, so I get afraid, like by things in this society that challenge my life, but there's also not a fear of it, because it's okay to die. It's okay to die. I'm like the only person that says it, and I'm most likely, no, I'm not the only person that says it, I'm sure there's lots, but I'm most likely to get my ass sued for saying that. Isn't that really crazy? That it's not okay to say that in public. Like, can you not see the mental illness of our society when it's the one given thing that is going to happen to everyone, and it's not okay to say it's okay to die? Can you not see the sickness of that in a society? And this is my issue with the L thing that's happening in our society. The L thing. I'm not sure which way it is in the camera. That it brings up this terror in society. I think it's going to bring up lots of mental health issues. Not only because of that, but because of lockdown as well. I think that it's really complex. But I think predominantly people's fear of the L is the worst thing that's happening in all of this. And I'm not saying that it wouldn't, you know, like if the L thing came, it wouldn't be painful. Like I would be the first, like putting my hand up for some morphine, like, yes, I will take the morphine or whatever it is to take away the pain. Like I know that death can be really painful, but it's also okay to die. I'm not suggesting that anybody goes and kills themselves or anyone does anything to others or to themselves in any way, but that came maybe from a little bit of fear of mine of that I can be in trouble for saying that. So I got sucked into the fear, but then I'm back and I'm saying it again. It's okay. It's also okay for me to be in trouble about that. I have a partner who will look after me if I get in lots of trouble. Joking. I do have a wonderful, wonderful partner. Yes. But I just think that just shows how our stories are such traps, the stories that we put out. And especially that most of our society believes in the stories, believes that death can really happen. Death doesn't even really exist. What is death? Death is always happening in every moment. You never have the past, you never have the future, you only have this moment. This is death. This is death. Your whole life, your family, your kids, everything doesn't exist now. There is only this, which is empty and full simultaneously. Okay, we can go to questions now.